There is no room in gaming for a new big console right now. And from what I've seen, a lot of people seem to agree with me, and a lot of people, myself included, are saying that this current generation feels like it is just now getting started, and that there is no room for a PS6 or a new Xbox console. I mean, really, what is there to improve upon for starters? I mean, I really don't think graphics can get much better than they already are. And the last generational switch, going from the Xbox One to the Series X, the PS4 to the PS5, there was very little positive difference. And in some cases, newer games look worse than older games. Some examples I can think of being like Arkham Knight versus Suicide Squad. I saw a lot of people comparing the two and saying, hold up, wait a minute, Arkham Knight was like a decade old when the Suicide Squad game came out and it looked so much better. Or like Call of Duty World War II, in my opinion, came out in like 2017 and it looks way better than the last several Call of Duty games. Or something like Lollipop Chainsaw RePop, which that doesn't even begin to look like a next-gen game. It's like, what is there to improve upon when newer games are somehow looking worse than older ones in many cases? And graphics have really reached a point where there's not really much room to improve. Whenever there were console changes before, going from like the PS1 to the PS2 to the PS3, there were some pretty noticeable differences, but from like the PS4 to the PS5, the Xbox One to the Series X, there was very little difference, and there just isn't much room to improve in my opinion. And also, last gen consoles, the Xbox One and the PS4, which came out in like 2013, something like that, they are still regularly getting new games. And the PS4 is set to keep getting new games until next year, and to the best of my knowledge, the Xbox One, Microsoft is still accepting applications for new games to come out on that console in the next several years. So it's like, okay, well, these companies are still supporting last-gen consoles, a lot of people have not moved on from them. Why do we need a new console right now? We really don't need it. This would be the approximate equivalency of, like, I don't know, if the Xbox original, the 360, were still getting new games, and then Microsoft was like, oh, here's the Xbox One, even though we're still supporting the Xbox original. It's like, there's just no real room for a new console right now. And reinforcing my point, I recently did a poll here on my channel asking y'all about this. Now obviously, my poll does not represent all of gaming, but, well, you'll see the results for yourself. So I let this poll cook for 11 days, and it reads as follows. With the announcements of the new Xbox and PS6, do you really think there is room in the console space for new consoles right now? I don't, especially when you consider that the PS4 is set to keep getting games into 2027, and to the best of my knowledge, Xbox is still accepting applicants to release Xbox One games. That said, I think there is room for a new Evercade console and also an Atari VCS2, please release in Europe. But my question is, do you think that there is room for a new home PlayStation and Xbox in the console space right now? So obviously I'm talking about home consoles and not handhelds. Feel free to leave comments, as I will likely be making a video on this topic. And after 11 days, 42 people voted, with the pretty noticeable majority saying that they do not think that there is room for a new home PlayStation or Xbox console right now. 21 people agreed with me and said that there is not room. 17 people voted that they believe that there is room. 17 people, so 40%, and 10% of people are on Team Atari and or Evercade. So, yeah, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves here, and again, this doesn't represent all of gaming, but there are a few comments here that I would like to read of people agreeing with me. So, for one, we have my man Zebra's World. He says there are games just getting to next-gen only right now. For example, this year, 2K26 is the first game to be only on next-gen. I assume he's talking about WWE since he makes a lot of WWE videos. Anyways, we need more time, and with the rise of AI, I'm good, keep them far away. And like I just said a little bit ago, you know, last-gen consoles are still set to continue getting new games, and the current-gen consoles feels like they're really now just starting to get their own games. Like, they're just now starting to get games that are not also releasing on last-gen consoles. So I definitely agree, because it just now feels like the modern consoles are really truly getting exclusive to this generation games. And someone named Dan Jackson 26 said, I'm not really sure, but one thing that I have heard about the PS6 that I like is that it's supposed to have backwards compatibility, meaning you'll be able to play older gen games on it, such as a PS5 and PS4, which is something they haven't done since the PS3 era and shouldn't have ever gotten rid of. So he says, you know, he's not really sure. He doesn't really know exactly what to think, but he is hopeful that the PS6 will have some backwards compatibility. I'm not the biggest backwards compatibility fan. You know, my advice would just be just get a PlayStation 3, but hey, to each their own. And a very good friend of mine, Ocean723 Avenue, says as follows, I don't think there is. We are still waiting on the new game releases for the PS5. Who has time for another console? I'm not buying it. What is the point if it's taken this long for PS5 to actually get its own games? Most games came from PS4 to PS5. I definitely agree with her here. Like I've been saying, you know, it feels like just now the current gen consoles are getting games that aren't on last gen. And I replied, I agree, we need more time for a PS6/new Xbox. And she replied, what's so special about the new consoles they are trying to release, do you know? And I replied here, well, both are supposed to have, quote, AI assistants to help you in hard sections of games. And the new Xbox will play PC games, but being realistic, it's not going to work the way people think. And if history repeats itself, look at the first Steam machine, it'll flop. And she says, yeah, I'm good with PS5, lol. That doesn't even sound worth it or convincing in my opinion, but somebody will buy it just so they can have the next best thing. And I do agree with her, there are going to be people who will buy the PS6, whatever the new Xbox will be, just to have the new thing, even if it's not really an improvement. You know, look at those people who buy the new iPhone every single year when it's pretty much just the same console releasing over and over again. Or people who buy things like the new Madden game every single year when it's pretty much just a clone, a reskin. So I do agree with her that people will buy the new generations of consoles just to have the next best thing, but she says that she is happy to stay with her PS5. Smart move there, Ocean. Now, about the Xbox purportedly playing PC games, they haven't said a whole lot about it at the time of my writing, but based off of my knowledge with PC, it probably will not work the way that people want it to think, because just with the way that PC games are, a lot of games are simply not playable on newer hardware. So let's say that the new Xbox is purportedly going to be compatible with Steam. Well, there are some games on Steam that simply just do not work on modern hardware. In fact, I've seen games on Steam that says this game probably will not work on modern hardware, like Cars the video game and a couple other games. You know, every now and then you'll see a developer's note that says this game is not designed for newer devices. So just about the Xbox there, I don't think it's going to be what people think it will be. And going back to what Zebra said about AI finding its way into gaming. If new consoles have these AI assistants, I am not interested at all. We recently saw that DLS5, whatever that crud was, that just slopifies games and just slaps an AI filter on them that makes them look absolutely horrendous. If that is the future of gaming, no thank you. And I do not want an AI assistant to beat my games for me. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of, is having a robot beat your games for you. And that's basically some of the purported brags that the next consoles will have. It's like, oh, we have this AI slop filter, or we have an AI bot that will beat your games for you. I'm good. And I know a lot of people personally who are still using the PS4 and the Xbox One, and they don't want to upgrade, and I really do understand. It's like, why would you upgrade your console when your PS4, when your Xbox One is set to continue getting new games for at least another year? With the Xbox One, it could be years, plural. We really don't know yet. Now, about my poll with the with a new Evercade or an Atari VCS 2, for those who are familiar with Evercade, their most powerful console is approximately on the same power level of like a PlayStation 1. So yeah, I think that Evercade could release a new console. I think there is definitely some room there. Or with the Atari VCS, it was kind of a budget console. It wasn't as powerful as like the Xbox One or the PS4, but it was also much cheaper. I would like to see Atari put out a VCS 2 and also release it in Europe, although the chances of that actually happening are pretty slim, since their new CEO, Wade Rawson, he seemingly doesn't like the VCS and he wants to get rid of it. But basically, between the big home consoles right now, PlayStation and Xbox, I just do not think that there is room for a new console, and obviously there is no room whatsoever for a Nintendo Switch 3 right now, since the Switch 2 very recently came out. There is obviously no room at all for a new Nintendo console. But what do you think? Do you agree with me or not? I don't think there has ever been a less hopeful next generation of consoles in gaming as there is right now, because previously people would be like, whoa, the Xbox 360, that looks awesome, I want to get that. Whoa, the Sega Dreamcast, whoa, I can't wait for the future of gaming. And now I see so many people who are like, if this is the future of gaming, I'm going back to my retro consoles. And I definitely agree. That's one of the biggest reasons that's one reason that I sold my Series X and I bought an Evercade VS-R, was I just did not like the direction that modern gaming is heading in with like AI and whatnot. It just doesn't appeal to me, and I am starting to babble a little bit, but what do you think about the future of gaming? Do you think that there is room for new home consoles with the PS6 or a new Xbox? Why or why not? Tell me down in the comments, and please do be respectful, but it's like, seriously, what could a new console bring to the table? Like seriously, I don't think there's much else that a new console can really bring to the table. Anyways, I'm babbling. For those new here, I mostly review and discuss Xbox 360 games, so maybe sub if that sounds interesting, and follow me on GameRam for hints at upcoming vids and behind the scenes stuff. And if you could not tell, this video is not scripted. Obviously, I did read my posts on YouTube and replies, and do have a couple notes, but the vid itself is not scripted. Now, my usual viewers will know that I always try to have a Bible verse of the day in my long form videos. So for today, we are reading Colossians 4:2 NIV. Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. And like always, all of my content is organically man-made by me. Keep YouTube human and only support man-made videos, and I never consent for my voice and likeness to be copied and altered and modified by robots in any way. God bless, take it easy, Jesus loves you, and game on, yo. So I let this poll like I've been saying, it's just now